on Kevin. Kevin started his digital journalism journey way back in 1998. He was the first digital correspondent for BBC outside UK in the US markets. And we are going to hear more from Kevin today on his journey of almost past 23 years and what all things he has been doing and what has been his learning. But as we know that we're discussing about the opportunities basis data. So all of us know like every business is a data business today these days. There is no doubt about it. And all of us tend to collect diverse sets of raw data over time into our organizations. And it gives rise to opportunities at multiple levels. What are the insights that we are trying to gain on? How are we segmenting our data? How many possibilities are there to find relevant data insights that match our business objectives? How many new goals and ideas are we willing to invest effort behind? So that's very important. Are our resources in place to set new, possibly, goals, set up for getting higher ROI and see them through? So bottom line, Kevin, you would agree with me, data is transformative, and how this transformation is limitless. So in the current times, so we definitely have to be focused on some specific goals to start, because it can confuse you very easily. And data is, again, it keeps on coming, keeps on coming. So we look forward to hear from you on your experience, as I said, and as you just told me that you also have some charts. So
Yes.
I request you to kind of start with the presentation, and then we can get into a little chat and also try to take some audience questions. Over to you, Kevin.
Absolutely.
Over.
Thank you so much, Amanchu. So I will kick it off here and show my charts. Oh, lost my cursor there. That doesn't always happen. Whoops. Come on. Come on. There we go. Wait a minute. 1 second here. Sorry for this brief technical difficulty.
No worries.
But basically, while I'm restarting the presentation software here, I really liked your introduction. There we are. I really liked your introduction. You're spot on about the. I think we have so much data. I think there we go. Sorry for that brief pause. It's midnight here, so the technology and I are a bit tired. So let's just talk about using data to grow your business. And this is a comment that actually I said recently to one of our members of our senior management, is that we're drowning in data, but we're actually starved of insights, meaning that there are so many numbers in our business, so many numbers. I mean, I think in my own business right now, I routinely deal with about 20 different data platforms. So internal data, social media data, video data, broadcast data that we have for our television station and our 2 radio stations. So we're not short of data. What we are short of is actually the insights and to make decisions that we need to make. So the first question I would say is, what's your strategy? You need to know where you want to go to figure out what numbers you want to pay attention to. And so, are you focused on ad-based volume? Are you looking for just to grow a very large audience? Or are you looking at something that's a little bit more like a segmented or subscriber-based audience? And I think, both are 2 different ways to have a strategy. I think a lot of us have moved to this more segmented subscriber-based strategy. Where I work right now, we're a membership-driven organization. So people who voluntarily decide to give us a contribution is how we're driven. And right now, what we're trying to do is increase conversion. So, here's a friend of mine, Ryan Sholin, who works at WordPress, said, there are all these types of metrics that we can pay attention to: users, page views, tweets, email shares, click events. And, thinking about what you're trying to achieve lets you know which ones to pay attention to. So are you interested in audience growth? Then you're going to want to pay attention to new users and page views, email subscribers, Facebook page likes. I mean, I often joke to my staff these days that, you know, if you want to talk about Facebook reach, that's just sort of a sugar metric. It tells you who might have looked at your content, but it doesn't tell you who has made actually any interaction with your content, whether they've shared it or commented on it. And so, you know, again, if you're trying to think about loyalty or engagement, that's a totally other thing. And so you think about click-through rates and sessions per user and frequency. You know, there's been quite a bit of data out of Northwestern University here in the United States that says that actually it's not how long people spend on your site, it's how often they come to your site and the length of time between their visits. So that's really important to think about your strategy and which metrics you want to think about. So I'm going to just talk about different strategies that are working right now that people are employing to build their business. And so you know, basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to get information and data about your subscribers. So there's been a real shift to what's called registration walls. So even sites like The Guardian, who have relied on, you know, membership and contributions, they're kind of moving to this registration wall idea where, you know, and it works for advertising-based or subscriber-based strategies. But what they're trying to do is, again, get that little bit of information because an unknown user is not nearly as valuable as a known user. I think that's the real critical part. Building loyalty in subscribers, even with poorly connected social audiences. So we'll talk a little bit about strategies that publishers have used with that. You know, I often say, you know, we know what Zuckerberg's getting out of Facebook, but what are we getting out of Facebook? We have to be very careful with the social media platforms that we use that, again, we're not flattered by things like reach, but we're actually thinking about that connection and, you know, if we're a subscriber-based business, how we can get that person to subscribe. And then breaking down data silos and working across team boundaries. I have to say, you know, there's the data part of this, and then there's the organization, the behavior, the cross-functional teams. It's so important, and it's integral to being a data-driven business. So registration walls. This is something that the New York Times is doing in the United States, the Telegraph is doing in the UK, like I said, the Guardian is doing. This seems to be one of the trends that started a couple of years ago, but now is building momentum. It's just any effort to get a little bit of information to make that unknown user a known user. I know for us, one of our primary goals in the next couple of years is actually to have some kind of registration system, because then we can figure out what people are doing on our site. So the benefits of registration. One, you know, it's not just about us, it's about our users. I mean, I think that, again, the key part of this, and I've got a conversation I've got with one of my colleagues tomorrow, is what value are we delivering to users? If you're delivering value, then it's just a matter of capturing that value back. And so for users, you can deliver personalization. You can deliver them a unique experience. So for the place I work right now, we've got a news and information radio station, we've got a classical music radio station, and we've got a public television station that has some programming for adults, but also has a lot of children's programming. Well, depending on who that user is, when they come to our site, if we could deliver them the homepage that's most relevant to them, I think that would be a huge thing. But for ad-based publishers, if they want to use registration, you can gain really important first-party data, which is incredibly important these days, especially as there are changes in ad technology, like the sort of deprecation of third-party cookies. And then for subscriber-based publications, you can start to segment your audiences based on their subscription status. So, you know, that's so many benefits of registration. The key to all of these, though, is building loyalty and really focusing on the data in terms of what your loyal audiences are doing. So one of the examples I use is Aftenposten in Norway, and they doubled in 2017, they doubled their digital subscribers in a year. And one of the things they did, and again, you know, it's really been their shift in mentality about the numbers that they pay attention to. So they went from, again, volume metrics, reach, page impressions, page views, to what their subscribers were consuming, what their subscribers are looking at. So, you know, how many subscribers do they have and how can they keep them happy? That was the shift that they made, and that was how they started to really transform their business. So they went from, in 2009, 60% of their revenues were advertising based, 40% were subscription based, to now in 2020, 80% of their revenues now come from subscribers and 20% are coming from advertisers. So just a dramatic shift, a whole pivot on their business. And again, underpinned by the data that they were paying attention to. So, the paywall, their content is their primary driver. So they get 70% of their web sales. And it's been really important for them to understand the kind of content that converts. So I've got a dashboard that I look at where I can see what new users, people who have just been not been to the site, but just once in the last 30 days, what content they look at. I can look at people who've 3+ users, what we call them. So they've been there 3 to 5 times in the last 30 days. And then I can look at our very loyal brand lovers, or what we call them. And I've got a dashboard that I monitor that, so I can walk our editors through what content is converting people into that loyalty metric. So metrics that OptinPost focuses on, they look at the top 3 articles in the past 30 minutes. They look at the top 5 articles today. And this determines what articles they use as Facebook ads. So again, they use advertising on Facebook as a part of their conversion funnel. And then they took total sales against the target. And so they try to get a target of 150 subscriptions every single day. And they also monitor the percentage of paid content on top of the page. So not all of the content that they have on the page is available. It's kind of the whole freemium model. And one of the things I think is that 20% of their digital-only subscriptions have come through Facebook. And so they're using Facebook's ad targeting technology to drive their subscription strategy. So again, they're being really focused about how they're using social media to drive those subscribers. And I think that's a great way. And they're using Facebook's ad targeting to drive down in those segments. And they even know what kind of articles they share on Facebook that drives conversion. So, they target their ads by gender, age, location, segments, and they also really are intentional about the type of content they share. So, things that convert well on Facebook tend to be a little bit more about personal insight. They're not really the kind of hard news stories that we might like as journalists, but don't really resonate with social media audiences. They're really emotional content. That's what social media is all about. So what OptinPost is doing to work to convert its to do this kind of conversion is you've got to start thinking about segmenting your audience. So like I said, this is the News Consumer Insights dashboard from Google. I use another dashboard, but it's all roughly the same. And so again, you can look at what your brand lovers are doing, what your loyal readers are doing, and your casual readers, and you can see what percentage of page views they're using. And again, drilling down into that content area to really understand the content that starts to convert those casual readers into more loyal readers. This is the dashboard actually that I use. So I see exactly what my casual users are doing and how many users that is, and then kind of moving them down the funnel. And what's interesting is, our brand lovers are really connected to our broadcast content. So they listen to our live streams, they look at the TV listings for our television station, the TV schedule for that. But this helps me understand the prospective loyalists are what I really pay attention to, because that's the people who I hope to have the best possibility of converting. I also look at referral channels by loyalty, and I have to say for us, and again, we're sort of a very kind of sort of intellectual public media group, and so search really does work for us. It's especially during the pandemic. Our COVID content has just been sometimes it's 92% of the traffic is driven by search. So it's people actively looking for topics. And so we have a question and answer series that we do because we know that helps convert. El País has also launched a subscriber model during the pandemic. And again, the subscription model that they've done has really allowed them to weather the pandemic and allow them to, as they say, address the resource challenges that they've had, and I think all of us had. But one of the things that they faced when they started to do this is they faced silos. And so working across the organization, I know we've got, often on the digital side, I work more closely with our membership and marketing team than our content team. They're not necessarily data natives, to use a new term. But their managing editor says, at so many journalistic companies, we don't communicate very well inside the company. It's a big challenge. So, I think that's a really key thing, is thinking about the data silos that you have. So, you've got advertising data, editorial data, circulation data. I remember I was working with a client with my consultancy in the UK, and one of their marketing folks was saying, look, if I had that editorial data that you had, I probably could have made that sale this morning. So making sure that those data silos, you break them down. I'll sort of finish up just talking about the Financial Times, 1.3 million subscribers and growing, and they've really, they're so much of their success has been driven by data, and the measure that they care about is not volume, it's engagement. They know that if they can get people to come back more often, that they can, and they have what's called an engagement score, and it's all based on frequency and recency. How often do people come back, and what's the spread of time in between those visits? And if they can get that score up, which is basically the synthetic metric that they've created based on those two data points, that they can get them to subscribe. So they've got this, their strategy is all about this, North Star goal is what they call it. We have one at my organization. We want to increase paying members by about 18,000 by 2024. Then they leverage technology, tools, customer-centric data. And I would say for us, one of the things that is a goal for me in the next year is the numbers tell us why, what people are looking at, but then we have to do some market research to figure out why they're coming. So we're trying to build up a market research capacity so that we can understand a little bit beyond the quantitative and actually get into qualitative analysis. And then I think the other thing is, and I really want to stress this, about breaking down silos, is the biggest success that I've had in the last 3 years in my current job is when I work in cross-functional teams. So with marketing, membership, content, and my team in digital. And that's really where we start to unlock value and change. The FT says reader revenue and subscriptions are a multifaceted problem that requires a multitude of skills and perspectives. So make sure that when you start doing these sort of data-driven transformation projects, that everybody's at the table and everybody has a representative. Take a look at this afterwards. This is kind of how they're building it, but basically it's like there's a goal. What do you want to achieve in 3 to 5 years? Outcomes. So what does success look like? You can manage what you measure, as they always say. And then, whenever I do a project, I always have a hypothesis. So one of my hypotheses right now is, as I said, we're kind of a very intellectual public media group. I think that search does much better than social because our content isn't that emotional. It's very cerebral. So I said, why don't we double down on search and, kind of be very focused and intentional on social, but only in spaces where we can kind of see results. And so then we run experiments to test those hypotheses, and this is exactly what the FT is doing. And I strongly encourage you to do as well. So putting it all together, align your strategy with your data KPIs. So whatever your goal is, if it's membership or if it's volume, make sure that the data points that you're paying most attention to support that goal. Set a goal and then break down the processes to achieve it. So, just as the FT has done, create some hypotheses that you want to test. Some, it sounds very scientific, and that's what it is. It's data, right? Align your teams and bring pools of data together. And I think that's one of the key, really, I think, little understood parts of this is that, yes, there's a mathematical part to it, but there's also a huge cultural part to this as well. Clear goals, plans, experiments, and that's going to inform any type of technical choices you might make. The technical choices are actually easy as long as you know which way you want to go. So now I'll stop sharing my screen and we can have a discussion and start maybe answering some of your questions.
Thanks, Kevin. Thank you so much. I think it's very, very encouraging to see the reader revenue journey for most of the publishers that we talked about. And at least from this side of the world, I can tell you it is still early days for us, for most of the publishers when it comes to the data revenue. The advertising pie still is much bigger. And as you rightly said, like engagement, I think is the first building block of getting onto that journey. So I think this will be it will be really great to know and go a little more into basics and define engagement a little more because it can't be just about time spent on your site or the stickiness. There has to be much more deeper kind of matrices that we organizations need to follow. So can you just throw some more light maybe on the FT model or maybe some of your more thoughts? So how can we build about more from this engagement piece, and particularly news that is very challenging to create that engagement?
Yeah, I think engagement, it's fascinating because and I think that the reason why you've zoomed in on that is because some people use engagement with page views, and they use it interchangeably. And I just want to kind of put some distance between those two things, because to me, page views is not engagement. Because I'll give you a perfect example. So we recently had a story that took off on Facebook because it was shared by three quite prominent Facebook pages in the area, and we had 70 or 80,000 page views on that story, which is probably, for most of your listeners, probably pretty small, but for us it was quite large. But the question is, can we get those folks back? So for me, it's to use a retail kind of terminology, it's repeat customers. It is people that are coming to you on a regular basis. Just as people say that you can't, it's very difficult to monetize an anonymous user. It's very difficult to really monetize a single visit user who never comes back or only comes back once a month. So that engagement is really it's being very data focused. It's being very
Repeat visit
customer.
from a registered user. That's what you are trying to say. Repeat visit from
Yeah,
a registered user. Yeah, yeah,
be focused on the user, and especially it's the whole 80-20 rule, right? 20% of your customers are going to be 80% of your revenue. So I think so often we've focused on these huge numbers, and really it's smaller numbers of people who are loyal to us. That's what engagement's all about.
yeah. Surely, surely. What do you think? What kind of tools one can use to streamline this data collection, and then start driving insight from it to particularly judge engagement and all the other matrices?
I
Any?
think
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, some of these dashboards that actually start to zoom in on content that's engaging these potentially loyal audiences, we know in some ways, we know what engages our most loyal audiences, and we know what engages our sort of loosely connected audiences. That middle part of people who are coming, like I said, 3 to 5 times a month, usually that's the period that I look at. Zooming in on that and looking for patterns in your content that relate to that cohort, to that segment. To me, that's it. And I will say this: I make it sound really easy, but having that conversation with editorial staff and being confident about what the numbers are telling you, it's a journey. It's a cultural journey for people to because editors are so used to that gut feeling, and presenting them with a slightly different view of it. It's done with some tact and diplomacy.
Sure. I have a question from audience coming in. How neuromarketing supports towards the collection of data of content readers? So, were you able to get this question? How neuromarketing supports towards collection of data of content readers?
So what was the first word?
Neuromarketing. Neuromarketing supports towards the collection data of content readers. So, uh,
Well, I think that, so is this more like psychographic information? Probably. I think what it does is it starts to get into that motivation. So the analytics data. So I mean, we've got Google Analytics, and we've got Chartbeat for us. I mean, it could be Parsley, it could be a number of other things. It could be Omniture. That will tell you, what people are reading. The neuromarketing, the psychographic data, the market research, that will tell you the why. And often that's a much more powerful thing because it helps with your brand. It helps with, again, some of the choices that you make in terms of your priorities. And I think that's, to me, that's the, you know, that's the one thing with all of this is it just helps you be more focused. Because I know, we don't have limited, I mean, the difficult conversation I'm having this week is how we set priorities. And again, marketing or digital teams, kind of starting the conversation about priorities with content is challenging. But I think it's using that data and then developing trust and respect across the organization with these cross-functional teams that really starts to unlock that value.
Great. So I think thanks, Kevin. And I'm sure you brought up a very important point of silos also. And we were having a presentation earlier just before this session. And I think the press from Australia has been able to, Austria has been able to do a great job of sharing this whole data philosophy across their organization. And I think that's also the first important thing to be done if we are moving towards the journey on a data friendly kind of organization. So thanks, Kevin. I think we are right on time and we can close the session. And thank you for joining at past midnight. You told me like it's been very late for you. So thanks again
Yep.
on behalf of WAN-IFRA, on behalf of all the audiences here, and
Thank,
we'll be in touch. Thank you so much.
thank you. Thank you. Good night.